Hi folks, I'm smoking my 7LE602 and in it I've got a mixture of Old Dark Fired and Bold Kentucky. This evening I want to talk a little bit about snuff boxes, which I've started collecting. Snuff taking's not as popular as it was, although quite a few of us do use snuff. And snuff boxes were made to keep your snuff in, but not just that, they were made to allow you to present some stuff to somebody. You would present the box to them and they could take their sample, and as a sort of shared social service, if you like, that it was part of being sociable, it was part of etiquette. The earliest snuff boxes, we think, were probably bone and probably horn and that kind of thing. And that's one of the earliest ones I've got, I think. That's a bone snuff box. It's quite a deep one, so you could get a nice amount of snuff in it. It's very simply made. It has a piece of wood to sort of stick the bone to, and the top fits quite firmly on these. So they were made so the hook so that you could get the top off easily. When you're collecting, the one thing you have to look for is, are they damaged? If they're not damaged, then they're obviously more valuable. Well, a lot of mine show some damage because I've only started collecting them recently. But sometimes you have to get damaged ones to get a sample of the type that you want until you can afford to get one of the more expensive ones. And that's a little piece that's missing, but it doesn't really affect the snuff box. Another bone one I have, and this is a very common shape, and this one has a silver plate on it with initials. Unfortunately, it's better when the plates aren't initialed, but these ones are quite nice because if you hold them up to the light you can see the sort of light shining through them. Again, quite a big snuff box. They would be either used on the table or they'd be used when you went out, probably during the 17th, 18th century, 19th, late 18th, early 19th, and you'd open it up and present the snuff to somebody. The simplest one I have, and these you have to be careful because these can be made at any time, is a coffin shape with a little plaque on it, and I guess this one's a modern one. It's the first snuff box I bought, and you can see how it's just been roughly hewed out. They come in all sorts of metal. That's just a plain metal one that you might make tobacco, that you might make cigarette cases out of, or a tobacco case for rolling. And again, it opens up very simply. Again, quite a classic shape for a snuff box. Some of them were table snuff boxes that you kept on the table at home, the bigger ones. Some were made of wood. I've shown you the coffin. And this is a particularly nice one. It's Mache ware. It's a Scottish thing with the picture that's transfer printed on. It's quite a nice snuff box, and you can see that it's got snuff in it. If you want to know whether a snuff box has been used and you can't see snuff in it, if you rub your finger in, if you hear that, you can feel the grains of snuff. Occasionally you can smell them. But that's His Royal Highness the Duke of Albany on there. I was quite pleased to get that because all these snuff boxes I got at a remarkably cheap price. Another favourite sort of thing to use to make snuff boxes is papier mâché. And then they're lacquered and usually a design put on them. This one's a particularly nice one. It's quite a common design. You can see that it's got one or two little pieces missing there. But again, nice opening, and that one's metal lined. Another wood one with fishes on it. So a lot of people would have a favourite design, either dogs, horses, fish. Very simple. Or you'd stick a coin on. Sometimes you can date them by the coin that's on, because they can't be any younger, any older than the coin, any younger than the coin that's been put on them. That one's just more of a metal sort of seal than a coin. Again, papier mâché, which lasts a long time. People would use tortoise shell as well. That's a particularly nice papier mâché one. The advantage of having a lacquered one like that is that you didn't have to have a lining. The snuff could quite go in it quite easily without damaging it. They come from all around the world. That's a Chinese one. It's quite a large one. And this one unscrews, and it has a lacquered lining inside. A lot of the Oriental ones and a lot of snuff ones were snuff bottles, and they're quite nice to collect and can be very expensive. Amongst the lacquered ones, you could also get them with designs on, and you can see that's a coach and horses. It also gives you some idea of how old they are, although you can't always tell by that. But you can see that one's got snuff in it, or had snuff in it. Very fine snuff in there. If you're going to start collecting, as I say, try to get ones that aren't damaged. I have sort of quite a lot with a little bit of damage on them. Another snuff box made of wood and brass. A lot of the brass ones were used by miners, either for snuff or for their twist tobacco, a little piece of twist tobacco. They sell a slightly higher price usually if they're engraved with the mine and the name of the miner on it. And then I said they come from all around the world. This is a Burmese one or an Indian one. I'm not quite sure which. When I got it, it was in very, very dirty condition. And the person who sold it to me, I don't really think realised that it was silver. It's not hallmarked, but it's quite a nice design. And the final one I'll show you today is probably the best one I've got, although it's not perfect by any means, and that's called a Snuff Mole. Now, moles are expensive. You can pay anything up to 2, 3, 4, 5,000 for a mole, if it's a particularly fine one. These small ones aren't as much as that. You can get them for about 100, 200 pounds. But this was a lot less than that, because the person who was selling it, it came from her grandma's attic, and I don't think she knew how much they were when she put it on eBay. But you can see the damage there. But snuff moles are particularly nice because they're very tactile, and you can hold them and just gently put some stuff in the hand. I've got a picture of one somewhere which I'll show you sometime, of a mole that we had in the lodge, which was a big ram's head, the skull, with the horns curling, and then in the top was set a snuff box. But that's still called a mole, and that one again would be a very, very expensive one. This one does have silver fittings, but it's very simple. It's been pinned. The top needs tightening up a bit. You can see that the hinge has dropped down a bit, and I've moved it a bit. I mean, it used to be like that, but I've been able to move it a bit. But I've got to be careful that I don't snap that when I'm adjusting it. But very nice, simple snuff mole, and that will sort of stand on a table like that. As I say, I do have other ones, but I think that's enough to show you for tonight. I also have a Chinese one somewhere, which is a little oblong one, which has ivory on it, and Chinese characters and writing. But I'll end there. I mean, you already know a bit about the different kinds of snuff you can get. If you like snuff, I would try some of the German ones. They're particularly good. And the early snuffs, of course, would just be the tobacco that you were smoking, you ground down, and you still can get single tobaccos. So you could have Latakia or Virginia or even Sam Gowith blends. But most of them have some kind of flavouring. Some of them are sort of peppermint, medicinal snuff they call it, which has things like aniseed, licorice, so that it clears the head as well as. And snuffs can be different strengths as well, but they certainly give you a nicotine hit straight away. And we used very much in the Victorian times by miners, as I say, because they couldn't take them down the mine, and they were used in places where you couldn't smoke. If you worked in a flour mill, for example, you can't smoke in a flour mill. Just too dangerous. The flour dust would blow up. And my Grandad Bing, who was a wherry captain, at one time worked in a flour mill, and that blew up around him, but he was unhurt. He was very lucky. I think a lot of the other men who worked there were killed. The other thing about the flour mill was that they didn't weigh the flour sacks when they milled them. They weighed it afterwards. So the average weight that he would carry were 20 stone, 16 to 20 stone sacks sometimes, which is a lot of weight. But anyway, that will do for tonight. Just to show you something other than tobacco and pipes, but that's tobacco related. So I wish you all the very best. Have a good night. Have a good rest of your weekend. And blessings be upon you.